And Frank, I'd like to introduce Frank, who is our specialist high skills major lead and co-op. He's one of our pathways consultants. And I guess I'm introducing Kevin DeFreitas, who is our experiential learning and guidance and institutional memory in terms of pathways. I'd like to thank them for all of their efforts and thank you for today. I'm going to begin by sharing our screen, and Frank will lead us through the presentation for today.
So before we begin, let's just start, well, first of all, remembering those are the victims of the plane crash in the Ukraine before we start our prayer. In the name of the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. Dear God, grant us an abundance of your wisdom. Prepare our hearts to be kind and gentle to each and every one of our students. Give us grace as we help students who aren't thriving. Courage to say what needs to be said, tools and knowledge on how and when to speak love, and strength when they feel weak. When we feel unseen, help us to remember that no moment goes unnoticed, that we are shaping the future in 1 million small yet incredible ways every day. Help us to remain conscientious enough to keep our lessons always interesting, to recognize that what motivates each of our students, but most of all, Lord, help us to show your love to all our students. Amen. And join me as we make our land acknowledgement. We are gathered on the ancestral lands and waters,
and left their footprints on Mother Earth before us. We respectfully acknowledge the race who have walked on it, those who walk on it now, and future generations who have yet to walk upon it. We pray to the creator from stewards of the earth. Okay, so in terms of the agenda for today, what we've got planned is to we've gone through the welcoming and the prayer, the land acknowledgement. We're going to talk about the reporting requirements for this project or for this proposal. What you need to know in advance is that we were able to make this possible by pooling funds from a variety of different budgets, including experiential learning, high schools major, cooperative education, in some cases OPIAP, and from student success as well. So you need to understand that part of our reporting responsibility is to ensure that we are spending the money to support those programs. And so that's why there's going to be a fairly heavy flavor of that, along with STEAM, obviously. Kevin's going to talk about the experiential learning cycle and talk to you about some of the budget and reporting guidelines. And then we'll wrap up with the submission of the artifacts.
So many of the projects have an experiential learning component to them in some way, whether it be through an introduction to different industries, whether it be through students developing work-related skills, whatever it may be. And as such, it's important to make the connection with career life planning. In addition, take the opportunities throughout the project to educate the students on those schoolwork programs. As Lou mentioned, some of the funding is coming from some of our pathways programs, and so I just wanted to highlight them a little bit for you, a few of them for you. So the first one being SHSM, Specialist High Skills Major. We're talking to the high school panel here, so I'm sure you guys are well aware of SHSM. A special bundle of courses and industry certifications and trainings, in addition to a co-op placement that students get. Co-op, of course, is the most authentic experiential learning, where students are out in the community, at work, earning credits in place of work experience or working in industry. And that closely related to OYAP. Many of our co-op students will go, who are working in an OYAPable trade, will be signed up as an apprentice, begin their apprenticeship in terms of their hours counting in co-op towards their 8,000 hours or whatever it may be specific to that trade, working towards their apprenticeship so they can make the transition right from high school right into the trades.
Okay, so as you are when you're working through your various projects, when you see those connections, whether it be to experiential learning, co-op, and OYAP, if you're seeing those connections, fairly explicitly, we would ask that you do your best to, make sure that the students are aware that, maybe this project is actually something that could lead to a career in a particular area, and maybe there's a little bit of that career exploration, an exploration of possible post-secondary pathways, those kinds of things. Okay, I don't want to tell you your business, because your proposals were all great and you're doing some really wonderful work. But when you can see those connections to to post-secondary, to actual career pathways, anything you could do to support that would be very helpful and good. In terms of STREAM, we've been doing our best to try to get people to understand just sort of what I guess our vision for STREAM is from the board level. You'll see we've got our STREAM logo done both in English and in French. And a very simple explanation is the faith-filled integration of authentic learning tasks that are focused on science, technology, religion, engineering, the arts, and mathematics to solve a relevant problem through a design thinking approach. Okay, and many of your projects are doing that anyway, so you don't really have to worry about it. Your projects do involve one or more, if not all, and I know that you kind of see all of those connections to those different subject areas, understanding that they're not siloed, that most authentic learning tasks are cross-curricular and they're real. So I want to thank you for that. And of course, your projects are all focused on making a positive change, whether it be in your local community or in the greater community out there. So thank you very much for all of your hard work putting that together. Okay, now I'm going to take us through the reporting template, and we've tried to keep it as simple as possible. Now, part of it is because we need to collect this information, because we do have to report back to the ministry exactly how the money is being spent. And there's some parameters around that. And I won't lie to you, another part of it is if we have these artifacts, we're able from our end of the board to be able to recognize the hard work that you've done in your school. And of course, this is great for you as well, because you can use this at an open house, or you can use this as part of a curriculum night to promote and to celebrate some of the really good stuff that's happened. You can even use it at the end of the project. You might be inviting parents in to see some of the work that you're doing. So it's a great way to curate some of the stuff that you've been doing or will be doing in your projects. I'm going to come out of presentation mode because we've made use of the negative space. Thank you, Michelle Bolger, for teaching me this little trick a couple of years back. So you'll get, each school that's participating in this will get a slide deck. Your slide deck will start off with with your title slide. As long as we've got your school principal teachers, if you want to take this slide and you want to, personalize it, brand it according to your school, by all means, go for it. If you want to just keep it simple and just sort of populate it with school principal teachers and maybe your project title in there as well, where it says reporting tool evidence of impact, by all means, go for it. What you'll see in the negative spaces outside of the slides are just a little bit more information around the project and some of the things that you probably should be aware of as you are moving forward. Okay, so this is kind of a creative way to help guide you through your project, and a great way for you to be able to curate your work after the fact. Okay, so I'm not going to go through each one of these questions because it's pretty obvious, but on this slide you're going to be looking at who is the learner, briefly outline what the project is about, how your funding was used, and if it were me, I would include pictures, maybe links to websites that might be developed, or any video, different kinds of things here that will help to showcase the process of putting it all together. Again, in the negative spaces, I've added in some bits and pieces for you to consider, prompts for you to consider as you're going moving forward. If if you have a question in terms of what makes a good artifact, I've included a link in the bottom left-hand quadrant there on the outside to a website that would describe what a good artifact is. I think Frank wanted to say something.
I just wanted to add, we are looking at also bringing in a co-op student that we're doing in partnership with a community partner who we would have available to us. So I'd be able to send that co-op student out to maybe video, take pictures of your projects throughout the process. So if that comes to fruition, then I'd be working with you on that as well to help with that.
Okay, so I think that's a really great option. Okay, on the next slide here. Okay, and these are all questions that you pretty much tackled in your proposal anyway, but between now and the end of your project, things might shift a little bit. And again, when we use this in terms of highlighting your project or highlighting your school, it's important for us to kind of have it in a nice handy dandy package, and it helps us when we have to go back and do our reporting back to the ministry. Okay, so questions on here: who were your community partners? What role did your community partner play in the development and implementation of the project? How did you meet the proposed criteria? And again, including any artifacts, again, videos, podcasts, anything that you think would help to provide us with an overview of your project and the process. Okay. On this slide here, we're talking about any instructional strategies and assessment practices that you may have used. How did you measure evidence of student impact? What was the impact on student achievement and engagement and well-being? That this would be where you would put that. And on this slide here, how is the impact on your students supported by the data you collected? Any teacher reflections would be included here. And then over here at the end, if you wanted to include more sort of artifacts, and this is just an examples of the types of things that you might include, either embedded throughout the presentation or or in one big shot at the end of it. Okay. Are there any questions so far? Are we good to keep moving? Trying to be very respectful of your time. So if it's moving a little bit too fast for you, by all means, reach out to one of us and we can provide you with more instruction. Okay. So we are now going to move on to the experiential learning cycle, and we are going to shift spaces.
So experiential learning cycle isn't something entirely new. It's something that we've asked school teams to provide or to encourage students to use in past experiential learning projects. Speaking of which, those slides that Lou was just showing you, there are samples from previous schools on the website that was associated with your application. So you probably would have seen it there, as well as link to the actual experiential learning cycle. So I'll actually launch that right now. And this is something that the ministry is really pushing all schools across the province to encourage. And what it also does is it ties in nicely with education and career life planning, the 4-step inquiry process, has the student in the middle as they participate in all of these STREAM opportunities. It's not just about going on a field trip or having a guest speaker come in and share their experiences with them. We want them not to ignore that the next part, not just the what, but the so what and the now what. Okay, so here are just some prompts or some words that kind of can be associated with that to get students thinking. And below that is actually this here, some questions, some prompts, I guess, that follow the 4-step inquiry process so that kids can use this when they are experiencing the activities related to the STREAM projects, and they can also document this in their individual pathway plan or digital portfolios. So the experiential learning cycle isn't just about participating in experiential learning activities, but also reflecting on them and applying them, discerning your possible career opportunities in the future. I think that was it. Yeah. So before I get into budget guidelines, any questions about the experiential learning cycle? Okay. So with budget, I don't know if we're going to have Louisa help us as well, but on this slide, what we have are the spending parameters. And when I open this up here, you get a sample of what your budget tracking spreadsheet will look like. This spreadsheet is modeled after the SHSM spreadsheet. It's a little bit simpler, but it follows a kind of similar framework where the front page is actually your summary, and it's only early on when you will ever have to put anything on this front page. what you'll get is an amount here. High schools all get, I believe, the same amount, and you'll see what that is. I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. But what this is asking you to do, I know that people had given us a plan for their finances, but the amount that you received wouldn't necessarily be exactly what you asked for. That's beyond us.
For secondary schools got $5,000.
5,000. Okay, so then that'll be, you guys are all secondary in
top,
this session, so we can say that. We won't talk about the elementary amounts. But what you can do with that 5,000 then is it may match very closely with what you had planned anyway, but just give us a projection. This does not have to be written in stone. It's really just a plan. It's just basically, if it's 25% for each of these categories, that's fine. Or if you want to give a little bit more emphasis to one versus the other, that is your initial plan. And what's going to happen is all of your totals will get summed up here in terms of what you spent and what's remaining. And there will be totals on the very bottom as well. But where you enter those line by line expenses, that would happen here. So this is what the SHSM liaisons would do as well. So just very brief, you don't need a treatise here. It's just the date, the item, and the cost. So busing would be pretty consistent. And what Louisa might have a chance, I know she's going to step in a bit, but she's asked us to add a couple of features to this so that we can track better. So just if you can, if your school team can, include the, here she is, the invoice number. Okay, so that's for transportation, just the invoice number for transportation, right, Louisa? She's here to help me. That's the hot seat. Okay.
Hi there.
So this is Louisa. She will also be supporting schools with budget challenges. So that was one category, was transportation. The next category is teacher release. And what you'll notice is that the criteria, which was also on the application, so you would have seen it there, is listed for each category. And you're not going to have to fill out this section. You just go to this line by line section. You scroll down a tiny little bit in each tab here, this bottom tab. And again, date, item, cost. And for teacher release, we'd also like to see the job number. This is going to just help track things a little better. And then for materials, if any, if you're purchasing materials for your project, same thing, a little bit different because materials are over, is it any cost or is it over 500?
Yeah.
So this you can just say NA if it's under 500, but if it is over 500, then you should be getting a PO number. And if you have any questions about how to do that, then you can contact Louisa Coquin at the board. And then the invoice number as well.
So you do have access to Fund Center 4879 to create the POs. So you've been each given the access. Your secretaries should have the access to that.
Yeah. Each of the budget categories, the Fund Center, all that information is spelled out on each tab, but also in the front summary page. And finally, when it comes to the fees, they all look identical, as you can see, and it's just slightly different where you have the PO. Actually, that's the same as the last one. PO number and invoice number. When you enter something, let me just, this is going to show up. If I say $200 here, okay, it's going to show up on the back tab as well. And then when you enter these, all the calculations are going to be attached here. So you won't have to do anything but enter the line number. You don't have to do any other math. Okay, so all you're really doing is line by line. And that's exactly what the SHSM people do. So you'll be able to get a really quick summary of how your spending is going. It's really just a tracking tool for budgeting. Okay, and I think that was the first part for this section. I think, Louisa, if you had any specific information, this is a very detailed budget guideline, which you're going to have access to, right? Is there anything on here that you wanted to highlight, Louisa?
Just to make it clear, if you are going to pay the vendor so that it's a more timely process, for instance, transportation, most transportation companies need to be paid right away. So if the school decides to write the transportation company a check, then they need to request a reimbursement from the board. And in order to do that, you would complete an admin 1. Now, secondary schools are used to using that template for the admin 1, but most elementary schools have no idea or have very little experience in using the admin 1. So the admin 1, yeah, the admin 1 is the one that you would use to ask for reimbursement.
Okay, at the bottom of this page, which I'm going to show you where you're going to find this, you have some deadlines. So that front summary page, that yellow section, we've just given permissions to school team members so that you can actually edit this section here where you're just giving us that projection. We're hoping that you'll have that established by January 17th. And then you have some time to, to conduct your project. And we're hoping that all spending will be accounted for by June 1st, by the end of the semester before exam time. And you'll see that there's also another, you've already seen this on your application, but this is the breakdown of the costs and the categories. So any questions? I know there's a lot, seems like a lot of information, but
if some of the timelines don't work with what you're planning in terms of project, just reach out to one of us. It's important for us to know, because at some point we do need to input all of this data into the PRESA, which is how we report to the ministry. So it's important for us to know what's going on. We'll do our best to support you in your timeline, but just be aware that we need to get all of this wrapped up and reported to the ministry by the end of the school year as well. Okay,
so this is a summary of everybody's. So we've got different permissions for the different budget charts. So you should only be able to open yours. If you can't, if you weren't maybe on the permission list for your school, just let us know and we can help you out with that, or send a request to access it. So your budget chart will look exactly like the example budget chart that I just showed everyone. And you'll also notice that on this sort of hyperdoc here, the budget guidelines that we just looked at are here, okay? And then I also believe that there's a launching point for artifacts. So I think, oh no, I have to take that off, never mind. Okay, so that's from last year. But what we could do is, we're gonna put artifacts here.
yeah, it'll be a live link.
Okay, so these are all the projects consolidated together. So it's a kind of a hub where you can access your.
Okay, all right, so I'm back at it. Changing seats again. Okay, so in terms of, we're pretty much done here. I just want to thank you for all of your efforts, for all of your hard work. I know that you're all very, very busy people, but I have to tell you that we were very excited to read your proposals and to learn a little bit about some of the things that you'd like to do at your school. I do want to impress upon you the importance of getting the report completed in time and to the board, because like I said, it's difficult for us to chase people down over the summer to get the information that we need to be able to input into our reporting. If you have any questions about budget and spending or anything like that, don't talk to me, but you can talk to Louisa. And I will provide you with a slide in your reporting deck that will have all of our contact information. So that way, if you do have a question or something that you'd like to run by us, we're more than happy to help you with it. If you are looking for, I know a lot of the schools are very much interested in doing training for staff around the Future Design School, design thinking. We have quite a team up here who is pretty much trained to be able to deliver that Future Design School thinking training and also issue certificates from Future Design School. So we've got a group of people who are able to do that for you. So if you're looking at, for example, getting STEM minds in to come in and do design thinking training with your students or with staff, we can save you several $1,000s. Just ask one of us or just let us know, and we can send a team out to your school to work with your staff or even with the classroom and work them through that. That way you can save whatever money you would have spent on that on other parts of your project, okay? So that's that piece there. Before we wrap up, is there anything from the rest of the team here? Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. So if the amount that we asked for is like significantly different from the amount that we got, how much room is there to pivot?
Meaning?
Meaning having to change direction just because the funds don't allow it.
What I would say is now that you're aware of what the what you're getting in terms of funding, what I would do is take some time, rethink the project if it comes down to rethinking the project, and then run by any change in direction with us. Okay. And then we should be good to go. Okay?
Thank you.
And actually, Jennifer, you brought up a good point, because if you're going to be using some school funds plus the funds that we give you, we need to code the invoices differently. So if that happens, where you have to divide an invoice, call me before you do anything, okay?
And I would encourage, I mean, if you are able to use some school funds, let's say you were expecting to, get, I don't know, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, you got five from the board, and the school is able to kick in the remainder of it. I don't need to know how this, about the school's contribution when you're doing your reporting. I just need to know about the amount that we gave you. Okay, so I would keep that separate from anything that we've provided you. Okay, so that was actually a very good point. Anyone else before we move on? Well, okay, thank you very much. We are, in terms of, any few potential job action, because I know that that's the elephant in the room right now. In terms of any potential job action moving forward, I really can't give you a lot of clarity around, can we continue this project or not? What can we do or not? We are taking it one day at a time, and I can assure you that we've got some questions going into OWECTA around this project to see if we're allowed to move forward with it, or what the parameters would be around any of that. Okay, so once we get a little bit more clarity and information, you'll get that from us as well. Okay, so expect a reporting template with all of the information you need within the next couple of days, probably beginning of next week, and we will also be providing you with any updates related to the potential job action as well. Okay, and if there aren't any other questions, I'm going to stop share. Okay, if there aren't any other questions, okay, point of clarification on the budget sheet. We only fill in the bright yellow fields. Very
At the
exciting.
beginning, and then the purple fields on the back as you're spending it.
Okay, so you're on the summary sheet, which is the very first page. What you're doing is you are, okay, I can share the screen again really quickly. Sorry, I should have gone there. Okay. Oh my God, we'll get better at this. Okay, so this is the front sheet. This is your summary sheet, so you can see the tab. So these yellow areas would be, yeah, your projected, what you're going to be spending, given now that you know how much you're getting. Okay, you don't have to do anything else on this sheet, because when you go into each other tab, so for example, transportation, I'm going to put a date in. I'm going to say we've got a bus, the cost, the invoice number. Okay, so once all of this information goes in here, okay, it's going to automatically populate these other columns over here.
So those tabs are linked. So once you put in those totals, it'll link into that summary sheet. If your initial numbers in that dark yellow are different, it will show a positive or a negative, so that you can have a positive in one, and it'll counteract with a negative in another.
We're not going to penalize you if you don't meet your projections exactly, but just so that you can kind of keep track where you started and then where you end up. Yeah.
Okay, and you would do the same thing for teacher release, you would do the same thing for materials, and you would do the same thing for fees. Okay, and you're reporting all of the different things that you're spending on, and the summary will appear here. Okay.
So just to add to that, then if you wanted to add another tab, if you really wanted to do a full projection and put some budget, initial spending, but to keep it separate from here because you're not really sure, then maybe just copy one of the tabs, maybe the summary tab or any of the tabs, and make your own copy that won't be connected to any of this. That's fine.
Okay. All right. So once again, thank you all very much for participating. I want to respect your time. We actually did it a little bit quicker than we expected. Have a great evening, and we will keep you up to date. Okay? Take care.